It's called the soft bigotry of low expectations. When a violent racist moron killed 51 people at two mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand in 2019, the entire world united to condemn the attack. It was the main story on every news channel. But mosque attacks happen all the time, especially during Ramadan, and most of the world never hears about them. You can find the stories buried on news websites, but they never become the main story. Why is that? People are killing Muslims as they're praying and worshiping in their mosques. How is this less important than a bunch of crybabies whining about Elon Musk buying Twitter? Well, in most cases, mosque attacks are carried out by one Muslim group targeting another Muslim group. Apparently, journalists are convinced that Muslim lives only matter when Muslims are being killed by some white supremacist. The irony here is that by only emphasizing violence against Muslims when the perpetrator is a white racist, it seems as if journalists apply a higher moral standard to white people than they apply to non-white Muslims, and therefore that the journalists themselves are white racists. Reuters reports, in an article you probably didn't see, a powerful explosion killed more than 50 worshippers after Friday prayers at a Kabul mosque, its leader said, the latest in a series of attacks on civilian targets in Afghanistan during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. The blast hit the Khalifa Sahib Mosque in the west of the capital in the early afternoon, said Besmullah Habib, deputy spokesman for the Interior Ministry, who said the official confirmed death toll was 10. That official death toll is nonsense, since local hospitals say they've received 66 dead bodies. The death toll is expected to rise, since dozens more are injured. The attack came as worshippers at the Sunni mosque gathered after Friday prayers for a congregation known as Zikr, an act of religious remembrance practiced by some Muslims but seen as heretical by some hardline Sunni groups. Syed Fazl Agha, the head of the mosque, said someone they believed was a suicide bomber joined them in the ceremony and detonated explosives. Black smoke rose and spread everywhere. Dead bodies were everywhere, he told Reuters, adding that his nephews were among the dead. I myself survived, but lost my beloved ones. So, some Sunnis have a religious practice that's viewed as heretical by other Sunnis. How do these other Sunnis respond? Public debate? No, suicide bombing. Resident Mohammed Sabir said he had seen wounded people being loaded into ambulances. The blast was very loud. I thought my eardrums were cracked, he said. A health source said hospitals had received 66 dead bodies and 78 wounded people so far. The United States and the United Nations mission to Afghanistan condemned the attack, with the latter saying it was part of an uptick in violence in recent weeks. You mean Ramadan? Targeting minorities, and adding that at least 2 UN staff members and their families were in the mosque at the time of the attack. Why are Sunnis killing other Sunnis over a practice that they regard as heretical? Because in Surah 9, verse 73 of the Quran, Allah ordered Muhammad to wage jihad not only against unbelievers, but also against hypocrites. How do we stop Sunnis from killing other Sunnis over a practice they regard as heretical? By convincing them not to follow the Quran. But if you try to convince them to stop killing, if you try to convince them not to follow Allah's command to wage jihad against hypocrites, the same racist Western journalists who generally keep their mouths shut about these mosque attacks will attack you for supposedly being a racist, because you're criticizing the main source of Muslim-on-Muslim violence, namely the Quran. You will never hear about the vast majority of mosque attacks because the vast majority of mosque attacks don't fit the narrative of the racist reporters who are supposed to report the news. Since they never report the problem, the world never knows how bad the problem is, and no one ever does anything to solve the problem. But the next time some white supremacist attacks a Muslim, that will be international news for days. Why? Because Muslim lives suddenly started mattering to racist journalists? No, because Muslim lives that are lost in an attack by a white supremacist can be weaponized against certain political opponents. We live in a sick world. How about we expose all sources of mosque violence, whether the source is white supremacy or the commands of Allah?
It just backfired on you. It just backfired on you. This is a part of our religion. There's a reason to it. Yeah?